Hey guys, we're back. Welcome back to Zillennial Support Group podcast. You have Silvana and Marriya here to support you emotionally through this trying time for Zillennials everywhere. How have you been, Marriya?
I have been alive. Um, uh,
Just holding on.
just holding on. I guess we release this like tomorrow. So
Yes.
yesterday I wasn't on yesterday. We pre-recorded it, but yesterday a podcast came out um, called "Did That Age Well" with Molly Smith, and you can look it up.
Mm,
And I was a guest on it, and we talk about if a Cinderella story aged well. So all of our
exciting stuff.
eight listeners, even if do we even have eight, should
I
listen to
feel like we
that.
have eight. Yeah.
Um, I'm looking at you, Norway, our two Norway listeners.
Our one Irish listener. Yeah, I actually had a friend the other day tell me that she was like, "Oh yeah, and I'm going to finally start listening to your podcast." And I'm like, "You haven't this whole time?"
And they send us a Mad Lib word.
I love the engagement. We only really need the likes. We don't really need the listens.
Yeah.
But so it's all good. It's all good. But
How are
yeah,
you
I'm
doing?
excited. I'm also excited to listen to your podcast
Yeah.
episode. It did come out yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, I want to listen to it. And then I proceeded to not listen to it, and I listened to other podcasts. But yeah, it's been like a gloomy few days here. Been kind of cloudy, but the sun came out today. So that's
Yay.
exciting. Hopefully with the sun, our futures will also be brighter, you know.
Ooh.
Coming out of the rainy springtime and into proper hot girl summer or hot vaccinated girl summer.
I can
But
tell that
yeah.
you like know how to read tarot cards because that was really like really like
Thanks.
metaphorical and good.
Thanks. I do read tarot cards. I do. I do. Oof, life, man. Maybe I'll do a reading on the podcast sometimes. Those take a long time though, so maybe I won't. But
Can we get Zillennial themed like tarot cards? Like, can I?
yeah.
What would if I got Lizzie McGuire? What would that mean?
Damn.
That I'm
Yeah. Oh
an
my
outfit
god.
repeater.
Yeah. Oh my god. Because there's like a little bit of overlap between astrology and like tarot card readings and palm readings. But in astrology, there is like planets that their position divide generations. So there's like astrology. There's something in your chart, in your astrological chart, that dictates what generation you're a part of and
Wow.
like where that divide is. So we could talk about that one day. That'd be cool.
Yeah. We're
But
just brainstorming live.
yeah,
Trying to
because
know
we
what you
don't have
think.
enough ideas. We're like talking about it on air. But yeah, but I guess in recent news, there is an ongoing war between the Gen Zs and the millennials. We try to stay neutral. We're kind of like, as Zillennials, the in-betweeners, we try and stay on neutral ground. But sometimes we just end up like in the trenches, like in that no man's land area between the two sides. But another battle has begun over this new world called Cheugy is the new word
Yeah.
that's been going around. I love how young people just invent new words, man.
The
So
William
innovative. All
Shakespeare's
these,
of
yeah,
today.
right? Just all these new sounds and these new letters just jumbled together to create something. But I'm pretty sure it's spelt Cheugy, pronounced Cheugy. And honestly, it's really fun to say, but I think it's a Gen Z word used to describe millennials who are just like basic. I think it's just like the like more evolved and nuanced sister of the word basic.
Yeah.
Um, but basically, I found this alignment chart. Unfortunately, only viewers will be able to appreciate this, but we'll describe it as well. From Casey Weekman on Twitter, she made an alignment chart with the two axes being awareness of your personal style, and relevance of your personal style. And so the relevance goes from trendy to neutral to outdated, and the awareness goes from in denial, neutral to self-aware. And Cheugy is the intersection between an outdated style but also a self-aware style. So they're very aware of their style and they do it on purpose, but their style of choice is very outdated. So you can see on my screen, there it is. If someone wants to screenshot that, it might be reversed. I have no idea. But it was sort of pioneered actually by this 24-year-old, which is basically our age, on TikTok. I'm pretty sure she was actually interviewed by the Rolling Stone. So there is like a proper journalistic article out there if anybody wants to do their research. But basically, it's honestly, it's more of a state of mind than an age thing, or like it's a commentary on your style or your lack of trendiness rather than like, when you were born. But it does lean towards the habits of millennials. So they're talking about things like, hanging up Etsy art on your walls that says like 5 o'clock somewhere, or like wearing Uggs and wine glasses that are like decorated with paint. I have no idea actually.
Yeah. I don't know. I hear some that are like Disney adults, like adults obsessed with Disney, or can be chuggy, or they say like The Office, people who are really into The Office. But I don't know what is current.
Yeah, it's hard because it's basically like being outdated trend wise, but also like being super into it. Like, sorry for the lighting for any viewers, but I guess like it is that vibe of like being really into something that's just like not of the moment. And because I try and like, honestly, as a person who like, I like style and stuff like that, I try not to like, you're only outdated if you bought into trends to begin with, because then trends fade and then you become outdated. So the ideal is to have your own sense of style that transcends trends, and it has more like classic, styles and stuff like that that are more timeless.
A few episodes ago, I wore a bonnet on air. Was that chuggy?
I'm pretty sure that was chuggy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it used to be trendy, but unfortunately your time passed like a few 400 years ago. So pretty lapsed in judgment there.
Yeah.
Not the same kind of vintage thing that you were after, I guess. Because I guess it is like that in between spot between like retro and vintage and like current new trends and like new styles. It's that like in between, like kind of outdated, because really all new trends are just old trends when you think about it. Like fashion is very cyclical, and it is like vintage things are the new stuff, like big vintage and like thrift stores and stuff like that. Like that's very hip too.
I'm waiting for silly bands to come back because I have so many.
Oh no. Yeah, I think that was definitely like trendy, but like for middle schoolers. Like it wasn't like all back. It wasn't like all the cool young 20-year-olds were sporting silly bands like out in the clubs.
What? What do you trade? Just like drugs?
That's exactly what they did. Oh my god, spot on. But yeah, in my head, chuggy is the very like Pinteresty vibe that was popular in like the early 2010s, and like choosing that as your style back then and then just continuing that style even though it's like not in vogue anymore. But it also, I mean, a lot of trends that are like kind of basic and annoying, they're very white trends most of the time. You see white girls do it. Some people take offense of like, if you're calling something basic, then it's like it's just popular, and like it's popular for a reason, so like don't make fun of people. But I want to like push back on that by saying a lot of stuff that is basic it's basic because it's kind of it's mostly like white culture, and so I'm like, of course I'm gonna make fun of white culture. Like that's one of my few joys in life. Like of course. But specifically, they say the difference between cheugy and basic is that basic people are just kind of unaware. Like even if their tastes and their style is like what's popular or kind of like plain or like mainstream, it's what they genuinely like. So like there's no fault in that, even if it is common. But cheugy is like you're aware that that's what you're choosing. Like you're choosing it because it's popular and because it like has that look to it. So it's like less genuine of like an affiliation with the style. That's what I'm guessing. I'm not an expert. I am an outsider looking in on this whole trend. I don't really participate in a lot of that dialogue, so I guess that's what cheugy is.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see just from like a sociological perspective the different cultures at play here.
Do a case study.
Right? Who's to say? I would love input from other people.
Would you label yourself as cheugy?
I would not. Well, because also my personal style, like, well, my aesthetic style has to do a lot with like music and like the punk scene, because that's sort of like, it's like a music thing that sort of transcends into like your lifestyle and also like ideas and principles, but also like fashion sense as well. But the punk scene transcends generation. Like there's a lot of Gen Z emo kids, there's a lot of millennial emo kids, but they were never the mainstream. So any sort of feuds going on with that mainstream style were sort of like marginalized from anyways. So, but also it's like, I think my style is also a bit more like Tumblr-y and less Pinteresty. I've always kind of hated Pinterest style and like that like DIY like mason jars. I don't know. Like the like live, laugh, love.
For some reason I'm picturing you like trying to wear a mason jar. You're talking about like clothes.
No, and not to like drink from, because mason jars are like very useful, but to as like decor and you know like DIY stuff. But the very Pinteresty like live, laugh, love, and like blue and pink colors like on your wall instead of like actual art, like that kind of stuff. I never really subscribed to that style, but I also like, as long as you're doing what's genuine to you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's like the cheugy is like they're trying too hard, you know. But I would love to hear outside input on that. But
so
the
Norway fans, you heard anything?
Yeah, because I also feel like this is a very American thing. I also feel like the generational feuds are also a very American thing. I think it's like American families are very contained. Like I don't think there are a ton of big American families that also like have ranges of generations where it's like usually they're like, oh well, if they do have cousins, they're all kind of the same age. Whereas like, I don't know, like I have a big Bolivian side of my family where like the age range between uncles and aunts and cousins, like I have cousins who are older than my aunts and uncles and blah, blah, blah. So when I'm hanging out with cousins, I'm hanging out with like kids of all ages. So it's not like, there's not that divide, you know? And also it's like you're used to hanging out with people of all ages around your family. So it's not like people, like I definitely see people on the internet that are like, oh, like I don't think it's okay for like a 25-year-old to talk to a 15-year-old online. Like that's inappropriate. And I'm like, you're allowed to have a conversation. Like you can't be inappropriate around kids, but like you can hang out with people who aren't your age and have it be okay. You just have to, you know, keep it age appropriate. Like you don't have a cousin who's 10 years older than you who you can just like hang out and watch TV and like talk about TV shows. Like it's not weird.
I feel like you shouldn't like be 25 and trying to seek out a 15-year-old to be your friend. Like, that part is where it gets creepy.
Yeah, it's like you shouldn't be if you're hanging out with a 15-year-old, you shouldn't be like a 25-year-old making a 15-year-old act 25. Like, you should, there's middle ground there, You should keep it appropriate to the lowest age, But it's like that scared, like, if people are just tweeting about their favorite band on Twitter and they're like, oh my God, you can't follow me because you're this age. And I'm like, as long as you're just talking about your bands and like music you like or celebrities, like, that's fine. But like, yeah, if you're talking about age specific stuff, like, then, but also it's like, if you wouldn't talk to your family about it, then maybe that's not an appropriate topic of conversation.
No.
But yeah, back to the Cheugy alignment chart. The other option, so it's that the top row of outdated style, the level of awareness goes basic to fratty, which is the neutral level of awareness, to Cheugy, which is the self-aware. And so if you take that fratty style, but you make it more of like a choice and a self-awareness, that's when it becomes Cheugy. And I hate frat. I hate frat styles. Like that Vineyard Vines, like UVA crowd, super preppy. I think that's mostly why I don't really understand Cheugy, is because I've never been a preppy person. I've never like worn a polo shirt and like vibed,
I've
And
worn
then the
a polo
next...
shirt.
You worn a polo shirt?
Well, I went
Was
to
that,
private
was it in
school,
like an authentic choice? You went to private school?
Yeah, so I wore a uniform.
That's crazy. Damn. Yeah, uniforms, man. But like, people like the Abercrombie and Fitch kind of aesthetic, like polo shirt.
Yeah, no.
With like low-rise jeans. I don't know. And then the next row of like the neutral between trendy and outdated goes normie for in denial of awareness, and then offline, which is the true neutral position of like no awareness of like a neutral state of awareness of style, but also a neutral state of trendiness. And then the self-aware neutral trendiness is dadcore,
No.
which is
These are like 1,000 words I don't know.
Right? So dadcore is basically like you're not trendy, but you're not outdated, but like you're very aware of like you're not trying to be trendy, but you're also like aware enough that you're not outdated. So it's like you try hard, but you're not trying to be mainstream, which is dadcore, which is I think that indie boy aesthetic. That's the vibes I'm getting.
I think calculus was easier than this.
And then the final row, the bottom row of a trendy level of personal style, the awareness scale goes in denial is a liar. So if you're super trendy, but you're not aware of how trendy you are, you're lying. You're very aware and you're just trying to like act like it's effortless. And then the neutral awareness is naturally hot. So if you're aware, but you don't try super hard, like it doesn't take up a ton of your mental space, then you are naturally hot because you're trendy, but you're like putting the right amount of effort into it. You're not a try hard. And then the self-aware, like you're super self-aware of your style and you're super trendy, is the himbo bimbo label. Which, from my understanding, a himbo is kind of like a dumb hot, but like a wholesome dumb hot kind of thing. I have no idea. But like you're not trying to hide it, You're like, I'm trying to be hot and I'm proud of my style choices. So very interesting alignment. I guess that's like, how that Gen Z generation is like classifying the different trends and like, I guess the different styles that people have in this day and age. I don't know. I guess it's like if they're separating things into trendy and then outdated, but I'm not a super trendy person, but I like style a lot. Like I feel like the emo aesthetic is like timeless. But if I was to describe my personal style, I've always described it as kind of like a cross between like the mod 60s style, like a 90s era business casual, like paralegal aesthetic, and like a 2000s grungy emo
Huh.
with a mix of like 2014 Urban Outfitters. Like that would I say that's what I would say my style is best described as. But
That's so detailed.
yeah, so if that makes sense to anyone, like we would vibe. But if it doesn't make sense to you, that's totally cool. But I think it's also a lot of my style is a reflection of like my music taste. And like inspiration I get from Tumblr. So yeah, I don't know. How would you describe your style, Marriya? Would you think you're like a very aware of your personal style or
I feel like
not
my
so
style
aware?
is just like, shit, mom overslept. Gotta get the kids to school.
I I definitely get that vibe of like she's got more important things to worry about.
I don't know. I don't really like think I don't look at any pictures of anything. I don't think I've bought new clothes in like three
Oh yeah.
years. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah. So, I feel like you're not like would you say when you get dressed and you have time to like get dressed for an event, would you say that like you're kind of aware of what you're doing when you're trying to look nice, or are you just kind of like, I guess this works, this feels right, I'm not going to
I'm
think about it a ton?
I'm just like, this is clean.
So I feel like there's like because I don't think you're outdated, like I don't think you're unfashionable, like I don't think like I'd be like, oh, that's a weird thing to wear.
I'm not like
But I
Harper.
don't think you follow
No.
like trends constantly online. So I feel like you have a low level of
I know.
awareness and you're kind of a neutral style. And I think that classifies you as a normie. Woo.
Ooh,
Can you see that?
yeah,
Oh, my internet connection's bad. But do you feel like that label suits you?
sure. Feel like I don't know.
Because I feel like I'm like regular. Maybe you are like offline. I don't think you're offline. I don't think you're completely clueless of like what's going on.
Thank you.
But
Really
I
nice
don't
of
know.
you. I don't know. I feel like
But
this is just all going over my head because I also like haven't worn real clothes in like 2 years. You know?
haven't worn real clothes. Well,
Yeah, it's
that's a
like I just
t-shirt.
wear this shirt and like
Yeah.
pajamas.
Well, also, it's kind of weird that we're talking about style in this episode because what I'm wearing today is like not my usual style. I'm wearing like a kind of a crop top with a cardigan. And I'm usually like my go-to is like a skirt or jeans and like a band t-shirt. And like that's my go-to or like a sweatshirt. But I don't really wear nice tops usually. But I wanted to wear sweatpants and then all of my uh band t-shirts were dirty, and so I just had this crop top left and I was like, oh, I guess I'll wear it. I'm not really leaving my apartment today.
Yeah.
But then I need comfort, so I put a cardigan on.
Yeah,
And then
I'm
I put on
usually
big
not this
hoops.
dressed up.
Yeah. A
Marvel
whole ass
t-shirt.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like if I had to place myself in this chart, if anything, it might be dadcore.
Hmm.
But like if I think only just because that's the closest thing I think exists to indie. And I feel like my style is more indie than anything, but I feel like what makes something cheugy is the idea that calling someone cheugy would offend them,
Oh.
whereas it's as long as you getting called cheugy is just like doesn't really matter to you, then it's
Mhm.
not cheugy. I
Yeah.
feel like it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But
Interesting.
it's very interesting, like this new development in the ongoing war. Like in my head, it's a little pointless. It's interesting because I feel like there was so much more camaraderie between generations because we all just kind of hated the baby boomers because they were
Mhm.
in government and destroying the world. But now the Gen Zs are like, I don't know. I feel like there's some resentment to millennials that I'm like, they're just trying to raise their kids. They're in the corporate world. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're also, I guess, still online. But any millennial hate towards Gen Zs, I'm like, that's so stupid. Like, you have better things to do.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also just like interesting, hearing you like talk about fashion
Oh yeah.
because I just like I don't know. I think I'm like in that weird thing. I mean, it's more of a discussion now than I think it has previously, and I don't want to like, because obviously I have a much easier time than like plus size fashion
Mm,
because that one like it's so hard to find something that works on like all body types, and people try to do things that are like this will
yeah.
one size fits all, and it's just kind of bullshit. But like I feel like I am very very small, that it's
Mm.
like my main goal is just to find something that fits, and that's all I think
Oh
about.
yeah.
And
That's
so it's like
tricky.
usually I'm shopping in like the kids section most of the time.
Oh. Aw. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, it is something, especially with like plus sized people, there's the expectation that they are very put together and dressed up, or they get accused of like not putting effort or being lazy because they already have that stereotype of like whatever their body looks like placed on them.
Mhm.
Where it's like you see someone like Kendall Jenner wearing like, baggy shorts and a t-shirt and they're like, oh my God, model chic. But then you put like a plus size person in the same outfit and they're like, wow, they put no effort. They're so lazy, so unkept. And I'm like, no, they're literally wearing the same exact outfit. You're
Yeah.
just, the body is what's fashionable,
Yeah.
not the clothing. But yeah, I don't like to separate different styles for in generational lines or like divides, because there are so many styles, so many genres of clothes. But um as like an in-betweener, there are like definitely aspects of millennial fashion that I like, kind of more the grungy stuff, or um the sort of alternative emo styles that I liked back in the day when I was growing up, and I would look at like magazines and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But I feel like a lot of those fashion senses and styles are still popular with Gen Zs today, that alt style. But I feel like, judging by the mainstream culture, like the mainstream Gen Z styles that you see most popularly on the internet and the mainstream millennial styles, I feel like the Gen Z styles are a bit more hip because I think they do take inspiration from a lot more alternative ideas than the millennial. That like very Pinterest, live, laugh, love. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
No, thank you. But it is
I'm
very
thinking
interesting.
you like live, laugh, love. What would be the opposite? Like die,
Ooh,
cry, hate.
die, cry, hate. Which I feel like is present in like a lot of screamo music, man. So that's the vibe. But I feel like that's just the origin of this whole feud, is that like people were making fun of each other in a haha way, and then people very quickly were like, I'm taking deep offense to that generational stereotype.
But I feel like we already have like the racists, the homophobes, the
Yeah.
sexist, and transphobes. So it's like we have enough people to be angry with.
Yeah, and I'm like, everybody used to be able to agree that baby boomers were the enemy.
Hmm.
So like, why are you like, we're on your side. Millennials and Gen Z are the same side. Why are they tearing each other apart, you know?
Do you think it's a baby boomer behind all of this? Like behind a little phone, and they're like turning everyone
Maybe.
against each other?
Because that's also when it comes to like Zillennials and the in-betweeners that are like, oh, I can kind of relate to like both sides, but like there are also things on both sides that I can't relate to. It usually comes down to if you're leaning one way or the other, like what generation your parents fit into. And so, because my parents are baby boomers, I kind of lean towards millennial, but I've never leaned towards the mainstream of anything. So, I feel like what people mostly make fun of millennials for, I'm like, well, I never thought that was cool when I was younger either.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I was also, when I
I
was
think the
growing up, I
takeaway is
was,
that you're just a lot cooler than all of us.
I'm just cooler than everyone. That's the takeaway. But I also, it was weird because when I was younger, everybody called us in school millennials because they were like, oh, you guys are growing up with technology. Millennials, the first ones to do that. You guys are millennials. And then, like, once I was like in college, the high schoolers became Gen Zs, and then they were like, oh, I think we're going to clump the college kids in with Gen Zs too. And then everybody just got really confused about who's who. But I guess that's just the deal with anybody who's born on like the borderline of generations. But either way, our podcast is a safe space.
You cut out for so long, and then I came back with our podcast is a safe place.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have all the audio for that. So that's
Yeah.
cool. That's why we record the audio separately. But when did I cut out?
Like for a while. I was just sitting there.
Because I was like, she's kind of
And
letting me
I
go
was
on
like,
this diatribe for a long time.
Well, I was like, maybe I shouldn't interrupt because then you
Yeah.
have the audio. So I'll just let you go, and then
Yeah.
once we get out of here, I'll just pretend I knew what you were
Yeah.
talking about,
I just
and
have
then I'll try
bad.
to continue the conversation.
I just have bad internet connection. But basically, wherever you fall, whatever your fancies, your tastes lie between generations, it's all in good fun. And we're all just bonding over the fact that, you know, the old people kind of fucked up and now our government sucks. That's
Ooh.
the bonding ground, you know? So whatever feuds you have between, I feel like Gen Z millennial feuds are just like the older sibling feuding with the younger sibling, when really, like, if you both get in trouble, you stick together at the end. So,
Yeah.
but moving, I don't know if there's a good segue in there, but basically,
Instead
childhood.
of talking about Cheugy, we're gonna talk about Chewy. Let's
Oh
go
my
to
god, TBT,
food.
the chewy, what are they called? Quaker oat bars.
Ooh,
Do you remember
yeah.
those? Those were good. So the real topic of today's episode.
I think I did pretty good.
Yeah. Is we wanted to kind of reminisce on some old childhood snacks that we used to eat, because back in the day, I feel like we were always given food as sort of a part of like the lunches we would take to school, or given to us by schools, or like teachers would give out snacks during snack time, or like snacks at camp, stuff like that.
For
I
some
feel like there's
reason,
this whole
the
yeah.
way that you describe that, like we were given food, just like makes it seems like they were like sacrificing something to us. I don't know why. That was what I was picturing.
Maybe, because I'll get into that a little bit.
Give
but
us yogos, or we will be benevolent gods.
Right? Okay, because I feel like when we were sort of reminiscing about like foods we used to eat as a kid back in the day, I kind of realized that like there really is a whole genre of food that's like just marketed to kids and that only kids really eat. And I'm like, do only kids eat sugar? Like, what is the sort of mentality behind this whole industry of like kid food that you only serve to children? Part of it, I think, is the aesthetics of like bright colors and like artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, and like kids have different taste buds than adults, and so they have different like palates, different tastes they can stand. Like kids can't really eat a ton of spicy food and stuff like that.
Well, I feel
But
like we also, like, our generation was the ones that had a bunch of like the food fad like diet things. So like
yeah,
protein powder, like keto, like juice cleanses. I don't know if that was like super big before us.
it's interesting because and I've sort of written this down too, is that I feel like a lot of kid food is very unhealthy, and I felt like I was like aware of that when I was a kid too. And then what happened with a lot of millennials and Gen Z is that healthy food is actually really trendy now that like we're all older. Like vegan food is really hip, like all organic food has gotten more popular in like recent days. And that's kind of across generations. Like Gen X are very like, oh, we're going to feed our kids like good organic food. So I think it's just kind of like a general trend with everybody. And so I honestly like don't know what like this new baby generation of like kids who are like 9 and younger, like what they're being fed because part of why I also want to talk
Real.
about this is that a lot of childhood snacks were also just like a source of trauma for me because
Oh.
my mom was very healthy. My family's always been healthy. They like organic food. But coming from Bolivia, she saw this food and was like, what is this white people food? I'm not going to poison my kids by giving them like weird snacks with artificial colors or things that like you wouldn't think are healthy. Um, and so all of these foods that I have memories of are based in memories where people who weren't my family members were feeding me. So like at clubs when like other kids' parents would like bring in the snack for the day, or like in kindergarten they would give us like snacks during snack time right before like nap time or something. Or like my friends would bring these cool foods to lunch every day and I'd be like, that looks so tasty, and like I'm not allowed to eat that food, or I'm like not bought that food at home and stuff like that. Or like some foods I really didn't even recognize because I was never fed that at home. I was like, what the fuck is that? That doesn't look edible. Um, and I think that will be my transition into the first food on our list is cheese balls. Not even like, I think I was aware of Cheetos as a kid, but I remember being in like pre-K, maybe kindergarten, but I'm pretty sure it was pre-K. And every day they would give us 10 cheese balls to each kid, and that would be like our snack. And I would refuse because I was like, that's disgusting. I've
Wow.
never seen something like that. And my mom would also be like, that's not good food to eat.
I'm
And
like in.
my teachers would get so annoyed at me because they're like, we're obligated to feed this child during snack time and we don't have any other food. And so sometimes they would give me M&Ms, but if they didn't have another kind of snack, I just like wouldn't eat during snack time and be like really pouty and upset because I was like, I'm not going to eat that. It's not real cheese. I don't know what, like it just didn't look like real food. It was
I'm
an
like
artificial color.
in a weird mood where I'm just having all these images, and I'm
Yeah.
just picturing like the like parks that say like don't feed the pigeons or something.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like picturing like your mom attaching a sign like that to your back.
Oh
Don't
no.
feed Silvana.
Yeah, and to be clear, my parents were very nice and they did feed me a lot of healthy food as a kid, but they also, my mom in particular, didn't have the healthiest relationship to food. So I'm not saying these foods are bad, but I'm also saying I'm not saying these foods are good either. Like maybe you shouldn't feed children really, really sugary like airheads and candy all the time. Because I don't really like candy. I'm more of like a chocolate and a baked goods person, but I was given so much candy as a kid, just like every birthday party I went to at school, they would hand out candy as like treats and stuff. So much sugar. Why? Like, I feel like
It's
if
just
candy was
easy.
a true good thing in this world that was like tasty and people enjoyed it, adults would be eating it all the time. And I don't really see adults eating candy.
Well, I just think
But
it's easy to buy in bulk.
I guess.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that like marketing to kids, like you need bright colors to keep them interested. So they'd put like artificial coloring in a ton of stuff and make it super bright. Did you ever really eat cheese balls as a kid? Were you given cheese balls? Did you like them? Because I have friends who are now that like because they used to eat it as a kid and it has such good memories for them that they love cheese balls and they'll like get it for themselves like as a treat and like be super excited about it.
Um. No, I mean I know what they look like. Like I can see them in the little like
That huge
plastic jar, like
container.
the huge,
Yeah.
yeah. And but I don't think I've had like cheese balls as like an adult ever. But I
Right.
think I don't remember like cheese balls really, but I remember what were I don't know. I don't remember the ball.
Yeah.
I don't remember the sphere. I remember like the like I don't know remember what they were
They were
doodle?
I can't remember if
Cheese
they were
doodle? What did they call
cheese
them?
doodles. Those were
Yeah.
like the a little bit they kind of looked like little tiny turds.
Oh, I was thinking like macaroni noodle, but okay.
But because they were so big, because that's so also like I can't remember if those like the doodles or the balls if they were actually really huge to put in your mouth and that was like a whole thing, or if I was just a small child and they're normal sized.
I think the doodles were at least like a 2 bite,
Yeah,
2 to 3 bite.
but yeah, but I think it was definitely like it was a thing that I only really saw white people eat, like at school and stuff, that I was like, oh, this is white culture. this is what this means to be white, is to like eat food like that. And it was also like some of the stuff I liked, and then some of the stuff I was like, it just tasted so bad. It didn't even taste like sugar or like anything good. But one thing I do still love is Goldfish, because I remember eating Goldfish as a kid and I really liked it. But it had that whole real cheese marketing on the bag, and so my parents were like, "That's okay." But
I've never liked Goldfish that
I love Goldfish. Wow. This is a divide in our friendship. I don't think we can move on. But to
much.
go
Okay,
down
thank
the
you guys
list,
so much for watching.
this is our last episode. But to go down the list of some old childhood snacks that I remember eating is the cosmic brownies in that big bright
I
packaging,
had that on my
which I remember eating the first cosmic brownie at a camp once. And they were like, "Oh my God, I love cosmic brownies. Like, I eat them in my lunch every day. Like, do you eat them?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I've never heard of it." And they showed me it, and it was like so fudgy. But then I remember telling my older sister about it, and she was like, "What do you mean you ate a cosmic brownie? Cosmic brownies mean that they're like pot brownies, that they get you high and that they're drugs." And I'm like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, that's what a cosmic brownie is." And I'm like, "No, the packaging says cosmic brownies, and it's just because it has sprinkles on it and it has like cool colors." And I was a little bit scarred by that.
I feel like my
But I
mom
was
was like
like, so many kids eat them. They're clearly not drugged.
yeah. My mom was like the cool mom who always gave me like a lot of snacks and stuff. So
Oh,
I was the one who like I don't know, after a while, I mean, I liked the cosmic brownies, but they bought me more street cred than
oh
like
yeah.
enjoyment. And so I would like give them away and make friends by
Wow.
giving away the cosmic
Bartering
brownies.
food for friendship.
Hmm.
Wow. Because I do remember like that lunchtime thing of like everybody would be like, "Oh, that's so cool that to like you get to eat that for lunch," and like if you have treats, and people would like share snacks and stuff.
Hmm.
But my parents always sent me to school with like leftovers and like fruit. And I honestly had a lot of kids who would ask me if I was on a diet, and I would get really pissed. Like, I wouldn't be angry at them. I would just internally be pissed. I'm like, that's so rude to like ask someone if they're on a diet when they're literally 7 years old. But it's just because my parents were healthy and they gave me like real food with vegetables in it.
I feel
But
like there were always like that one kid that just came in with like a family size bag of chips, and that was like
yeah,
their whole lunch.
I never
There's like
saw a kid with
multiple
a family
people I
size.
know.
Oh my God. I do remember there were some kids who their parents would bring in like Subway for them. Like their parents would go out and buy them food and then bring it to them. But
Oh, wow.
I was never that kid. But aside from like kids candy like Airheads, Gumballs, Gobstoppers, I remember those a lot. I also saw Nilla wafers a lot as like a really small kid, not so much an older kid. But I think that's because like vanilla is like it's kind of like a sweet thing but not too sweet for kids, but it's like something soft enough for babies to eat. So that's why I think I associated it with childhood, because it's like it's a solid food that like a really small kid is still able to like chew and eat. But
Yeah, I think of vanilla when we were like using the outside toilets at camp. We would bring in like a film canister that we would make with like a cotton ball in it that we would like just drop a bunch of vanilla on it. And so when you went to the bathroom, you would have to like open your little film canister so that it was like a portable air freshener.
oh
And that's
my
what I always
God,
think about when I think of vanilla.
that's crazy. What?
Yeah.
But also I feel like vanilla isn't a good air freshener. Like I feel like people bring in like flowers or they light a candle. I guess kids can't light candles, but like
It wasn't
I
really
feel like
strong, but like
vanilla is
you
such
wore
like a
it around
food
your
scent.
neck at all
Oh,
times.
so that it smelled good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, another thing is that I remember we'd have like field days at school, and for those they'd give us ice pops as snacks. Those like tubes of plastic that they'd fill with juice and then freeze them. Those I loved. Oh my God. But those were like a very artificial flavored thing. And my favorite flavorings for those were always the like citrus flavors. So the like warm toned, like orange and yellow flavors, like the
I
blue
like the
raspberry and
blue
the
and
grape.
purple.
Those ones I always hated because they tasted
Really?
really artificial. Yeah. And those freaked me out. But I loved like anything artificial, lemon flavored or orange flavored. I loved.
Mm.
Like
See,
the Starbursts. I really liked those.
I used to have to get the like medicinal ones.
Medicinal
Yeah, they like there's like a medicine version of like ice
of
pops.
ice
So I
pops.
yeah, and so we
What
would
kind of
have them
medicine
at
was it?
I have no idea. I think it was like super like hydrating or something because I remember like one time I went to like
Oh,
the
like
emergency room.
Pedialyte?
I don't maybe. And so then they just gave me like a bunch of them and I threw them up. But like we have a bunch and we had a bunch in our freezer so you never knew if you were going to get like a doctor one or like a real ice pop. So
Oh my God, Marriya. Also, you went to the hospital? But
yeah, I'm
why?
fine. I don't know. I think I had like 103-degree fever for like that wouldn't go down, and so we went to the hospital.
That's crazy, yo. I think
Yeah,
it
I
might
was
have
like
been
7.
Pedialyte then. Because I
Yeah.
feel like they just, like, if your body, like, if after you're sick or something or you have a cold, Pedialyte is supposed to, like, replenish you.
Mm.
Um, this podcast is actually sponsored by Pedialyte. Um, anyways, some other foods that I used to eat at school, they'd give us, like, I remember one time during camp, they made us make pudding, like, from a powdered thing. Um, so we'd make our own pudding and then we'd crush Oreos on top and then put gummy worms in it. And it
Oh,
was
the
like worms
dirt.
and dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that was really fun. And it was like a chocolate flavored dessert, which I loved. And so that I would actually get really hype about.
But that one they
Um,
had in our college cafeteria too.
yeah, I don't remember that. But I kind of stayed away from dining halls in college.
But there's also like a Lunchable version. Like
Yeah.
they did like Lunchables where they gave you like pudding and Oreos and gummy worms, and you could make your own in like a little pack.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I definitely remember a lot of kids bringing in Lunchables
Mm-hmm.
for to school to eat for lunch. But I definitely was like, my parents never gave us that, but I remember thinking like if I only had that for lunch, I'd be so hungry because they're
No,
really
I
not that
always got
much
Lunchables.
food. Yeah.
I had Lunchables
Were
like
you full?
most
Were you
days.
satiated? Oh no. Were you satiated by the end?
I don't know. I didn't really
Or
eat
were you
much
hungry
as like a
afterwards?
child.
That's bad, Maria. You need sustenance to
I like the
grow
part when
big in muscles.
um they had like a water bottle and like a Kool-Aid mix and you got to like shake it. That was a fun
Oh
part.
yeah.
And they also like put in like sometimes I think I probably still have them. They put in like Simple Plan songs. Like
Yeah.
you could take this thing and then like redeem and get like an audio file for like a Simple Plan song.
Oh my god. That's for kids?
Yeah.
That's so weird. I definitely remember Simple Plan, but I never remember actually listening to the band.
I listened
So
to them a lot because they were free with my Lunchable.
you were just such a hip kid. I couldn't keep up. But yeah, I think besides that, I remember mac and cheese also being a big thing. But I really liked mac and cheese as a kid. But we'd always get the like Annie's organic kind from Whole Foods. Um, but there is something to Kraft mac and cheese that just like because it's like more artificial, it tastes just like a little bit better.
Mm.
It has a very specific taste. But yeah, that was also something that we stopped eating once I got older. I don't know why. I guess you just graduate to grown-up food and you stop
I
eating
still eat
kid
Kraft mac
snacks.
and cheese.
Sometimes if I'm like it's like a thing if I'm like too lazy to do anything else, but I don't want to like order and spend money on food, but yeah. It's not a big part of my repertoire these days. But also, I don't really
Mm.
if I want mac and cheese like on purpose, I'll just like melt cheese with pasta
Mhm.
and then I'll make mac and cheese with like real noodles and real cheese instead of buying the box.
Ah.
as sort of just like a makeshift version. Because the cheese doesn't melt the same, but it does the job.
Mm-hmm.
But, but yeah, honestly, there are times where like I've bought Nilla wafers because I'm like, oh, childhood, TBT, to like the snacks that I actually enjoyed like during kindergarten. And then there's other things that I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of glad adults don't like give me copious amounts of like airheads and like gumballs anymore. Like when you go to a fancy party as an adult, they don't give you like candy as a gift bag. They give you like swag, which I feel like is so much better.
What parties are you going to?
Like if you go to like a corporate party, they'll give you like a stress ball or like a keychain or pens. I love a good pen, man.
This is not my experience.
Like if you go to a party, they'll give you like hors d'oeuvres instead of like a candy bowl.
See, I feel like most of the places I worked at, I was always like the intern, and they would
Mm.
bring in food, and then they would be like, "You can't have any."
What?
Yeah,
That why?
because
I
I was the
remember
unpaid intern that they didn't even bother learning my name, and they just called me intern.
that's so mean. I that's so mean. When I worked in an office for like one summer and they had free food in the like canteen, they'd be like, "Yo, go get it before all the adults come." Like they'd come to like me and this other coworker and we're like, "You guys go get some before
Well,
everybody
see,
else."
the CEO of the company came up to me one time and
Mhm.
said, like, I know you're not getting paid, but the water fountain is a nice perk of the job, huh?
Wow. Oh, you mean the public sewage system? The like water fountains? Like you can go to any public park and they have water fountains.
It's a
Like
real perk of the job.
it's like you have a free bathroom to use. Look at that. You're welcome. That's crazy. I don't know actually like cuz I remember being fed by schools during snack time sometimes. I don't know if that's a thing anymore if they're like allowed to feed children who aren't theirs. I don't know
Yeah.
what the deal is with raising kids these days.
I mean, like when
But
I worked at summer camp, we would still give the kids stuff.
yeah.
But
I don't know. I definitely like I liked crackers and like chocolate treats, but I think when it ventured into actual candy, I don't know. Something about just plain artificial sugar. It doesn't thrill me the way that most of the kids my age back then did. But I don't know. Who knows? I do have friends that remember these foods more fondly, but I don't know. I feel like everybody does sort of graduate from like you don't really see people in their 40s eating a cosmic brownie with their lunch in their corporate in their corporate office or their cafeteria or wherever. But
they're thinking about it.
yeah, you think that?
They're
You
all
think they're just
thinking
like
about it.
if only I had the body of a 6-year-old so that I could eat more cosmic brownies.
Yes.
Honestly, that's probably true. I guess we'll just have to wait until we're like 40 to find out, you know?
Oh God.
But yeah, I definitely for a hot second thought that like they were filled with drugs. But I don't anymore.
That's good.
So, moving on to our next segment, I want to do a little trauma versus nostalgia uh, to sort of close out our episode, maybe. Um, so, this is the segment of our podcast where we reminisce about things that we used to do when we were kids and try and decide if it gave us trauma that we had to work through or if we can look back and be like, "Aw, the good old days, nostalgia." Because sometimes the line is a little blurry and you don't always know. And then sometimes you feel nostalgic for your trauma. So it's a complicated world.
Yeah.
So, first up on the list is back in the day when I had friends as a kid and I wanted to hang out with them, I would memorize their phone number and then call them on a landline to their house landline, speak to their parents, and be like, "Hi, this is Silvana. May I speak to so and so, please?" And then they'd be like, "Okay." And then they'd go to their room and hand the phone to them. And then I would talk to them. Uh, and that's how you would like schedule play dates as a kid with your friends. And I want to know if that like makes you nostalgic, like, oh, good old days before cell phones, or if it kind of just gave you trauma that you're terrified to speak on the phone now and it like gives you anxiety.
I did not have that experience at
You
all.
didn't?
No, I mean, I don't
You
think I
don't
called anyone ever.
you didn't memorize your friends'
Well,
phone
like
numbers?
I also like I went to private school, so like no one really lived near me. So it wasn't like a neighborhood like I mean, I don't think I had like people that I actually called to hang out with until like I switched to public school and then it was like, "Oh, you're near me. Now we can like meet up and stuff." Because it was like mainly like
You would
I
meet
lived
up?
yeah, but it's like usually like in like private school like playdates were like just not really a thing because people lived so far away and no one really had like and so like we didn't have buses or anything so like you didn't really go home with anyone
Wow.
and or anything so
Did
yeah
you That's so sad. Did you just didn't hang out?
no
How long did you go to private school?
um from like beginners which was like basically daycare where we learned French and then till like
Oh my
fifth
god,
grade
you were such a classy baby.
yeah
Just like
we
learning French. Oh my god. But yeah, you never had to memorize your phone or your friends' phone numbers on their landline in their house?
Well,
Even
also
in like
like I think we all had like school directories. And so it was usually like my parents setting up play dates or something. And so they would
yeah.
have the numbers because they would just go to like the school
Aw.
directory.
I feel like my parents were like, you need to learn how to use a phone properly. And so they would make me like they taught me the phone etiquette of like dialing and being like, hi, can I speak to so and so? And like if someone called you, you'd have to be like, this is the Smith residence, or you'd be like, or they'd be like, is this Silvana? And I'd be like, this is she.
I never
They never
answered the
taught you those phrases.
No, I never answered the phone until I worked in like customer service.
Oh yeah.
I never I
No, yeah.
hate
I
that.
had to answer the phone at Forever 21 one or a few times back in the day, and I hated it, and everybody was always stressed out.
Everyone's
It's
just
not fun.
mean because I worked at a really like low scale kind of publishing house where like no one really wanted to work with anyone. And
Oh,
so they would just keep calling me and I would send them to like the voicemails of the people and then they
yeah.
would get mad at me. Um
Because I would always end up referring them and just getting a manager
mhm.
who knew the system better. But I've never needed to like figure out a phone system where I had to like transfer people or like put them on
I did that.
hold.
It
And
was
so,
awful.
like, if I'm applying to like administrative assistant or secretary's job, and part of the job description is like fielding phone calls, I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I want to develop that skill because it does give me anxiety, and I don't know if that's part of like using a phone as a kid or landlines, but because I feel like I don't call people unless I like really know them
Mhm.
anymore, that like to just like casually call someone, it feels like way more of an event, and
Yeah.
like you need a very clear reason of why you're calling someone instead of just like, oh hey, what's up, I just want like felt like calling you, and they're
Yeah.
like, why, what's going on?
No, yeah. I mean,
um
it's also
yeah.
I don't know. I think working in like customer service, most of our clients were elderly. So they
Mm.
were both like really hard of hearing and then they also didn't have anything else to do but keep calling us. And I have like a pretty high voice and so every single
Oh
time they would start
yeah.
yelling at me that they couldn't understand what I was saying.
Yo, one time this wasn't even on the phone. There wasn't any audio distortion. I was literally taking a very old man's order at a cafe once. And I guess he was hard of hearing, which is totally understandable. But I was speaking loudly each time I had to repeat myself. And he's like, ma'am, I stopped being able to hear the frequency that you speak at years ago. I
Oh my
cannot
god.
understand you. And so his wife was like, I'm so sorry. Like I can understand you. Like tell me like what were you saying? And then I spoke to her and then she was like, okay.
You have
And
to
I was
like
like,
put on a
damn.
voice, like
Yeah,
just
cuz
go really
also
deep.
when I'm speaking to like older people, but also like if I'm in customer service, I'm trying to be very polite and like submissive or whatever, like um my voice will jump an octave to like be
Yeah.
more polite or like demure or whatever because it puts people at ease. And it's just like I almost can't control it. It's like if I was like pissed at him and I let myself be pissed, my voice would probably be lower and he could probably understand me. But I can't just be like, and the more angry he got, the more I was like, oh, I have to be nicer. So my voice just got higher
No,
and
yeah.
it just
See,
didn't work
I feel
out.
like I will either be like really low or I'll be like Mickey Mouse. There's no in the middle.
Yeah, I think it mostly comes out when I'm like talking to adults or trying to be polite. If I'm like meeting a new person my age for the first time, I just speak normally. And then sometimes if I'm speaking to kids, I'll speak normally, but sometimes if they're young enough, you like jump back up again
Yeah,
and it's like
no.
that mothering kind of like high-pitched
But it's also
voice.
like when I get nervous or if I don't want to talk to someone, my voice goes up really high and it's just like hot dog, like Mickey Mouse kind of
It's
thing.
so true though. I've
And
heard that come out of you before in
it's
social
because I'm
situations.
really tired and I don't want
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I get that. But yeah, it's kind of nice though that um like I learned that phone etiquette so that like at least I had something to go off of when I like needed to talk on the phone in a business situation, but like I guess kids these days just like text their friends, like they don't need to like call their friends' parents first and ask to speak to them on the phone cuz now everybody has personal phones, but I don't know, weird man. The next thing I wanted to talk about was sometimes I'd go on little car rides, little road trips with my parents. And I remember because there was no technology, we didn't have like DVD players in the cars yet. I would just like stare out the window and like just like be very dramatic and just like listen to the radio and like think about things. Whereas I feel like now, anytime I'm in a car, like road tripping with friends or in the backseat for some reason, I'm automatically on my phone. Like I can't just like sit with my thoughts anymore. Like I don't know if this is TMI, but I can't remember the last time I sat on a toilet without like a phone in the room with me. Sometimes it's like I don't even use my phone while I'm on the toilet, but I have to have it in the bathroom with me in case I get bored. Like if I like I've walked into a bathroom before and be like, "Oh, I forgot my phone." And like I don't even use it, but I like need it on that counter as like a crutch. So it's interesting to like reminisce back in the day when I was just so comfortable as a kid not having something to do like on my phone, or like I remember reading would give me a headache in the car and I would get like car sick, so I would just like I don't know, just like chill and look out the window and just like be at peace and not it's almost like my attention span got shorter as I got older, you know?
Well, I think that's
But
true. Like that.
yeah,
I
I
think that's
definitely like
why
miss
like
those days.
videos and stuff got shorter. Especially like we went from really long YouTube videos to like TikTok, and even like the three
Yeah.
minute ones, the new like 3 minute ones just feel like a lifetime because our attention span is just so short.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Part of it, I think people try and diagnose stuff like that, but I also think part of it is like training your brain to like not pay attention to things and pay attention to other stuff.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of it is conditioning.
Yeah.
But that is definitely like, I do feel nostalgic for the days where I would just like sit in a car as a kid and like be able to just like relax for 20 minutes or however long and like not feel the compulsion to like be on my phone or be watching something or be entertained.
Mm.
Like I could just like, because I remember so many times like playing outside with literally nothing but dirt and just like being content and not being connected to anything. And that is
Hmm.
something I do feel a lot of nostalgia for. But you can't recreate that as an adult. There's so many I have so many anxieties as an adult that I have to be like vigilant at all times. I'm like I
Hmm.
need to be paying attention to something. But it sort of leads into my next thing of trauma versus nostalgia is listening to the radio, cuz I still love the radio and listen to it sometimes. But like as a person who lives in a city and I don't really drive anymore, I literally could not tell you the last time I listened to the radio or like had access to a radio.
Yeah.
So, do you listen to like your Spotify or your iPod in the car? Or do you still listen to the radio?
Um, if
Or do
I'm
you not
driving,
drive
it's
that
usually
often?
my phone.
Yeah,
But my
same.
car has been broken for a while, so
Aw.
it's usually like I'll drive my mom's car and that's usually the radio, and I feel like every time I get into the car, I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're still doing this." That's
Yeah.
nice. But I don't know, cuz like I feel like on radio shows whenever I would listen, cuz I would usually listen to like the morning radio,
Mm.
and I would say that it was like for traffic, but it's like I don't know what fucking roads are called, so I don't think it would have helped me anyway. But like they're always like, "Oh, like if you call at this time, we'll bring like a lunch to your office for all of you people listening to the radio at the
Yeah.
office." Who listens to the radio at the office?
But the next thing on my list is actually uh the amazing iconic Britney Spears. And I say this as I love her. She was one of the first CDs I've ever bought. But like the way Britney Spears was treated in the media back then, and also like the tabloids that were around when we were kids, like, do you think about Britney Spears back in the day and you're like, oh my God, I used to love her music, like, great, TBT? Or do you think about Britney Spears back in the day and you're like, oh, that was like one of the first public breakdowns and like my first experiences of seeing like the news and the paparazzi like treat a woman really badly, and like she was the first kind of like breakdown downward spiral celebrity that I ever heard of as a kid.
Mhm.
So like, is it like, do you remember her from that time fondly, or do you remember her of like, oh, that was a dark time for her, I feel kind of sad about it?
Um, I think I didn't really like think about her as like a personality. Like I
Mm.
knew a select few of like the songs, but I didn't really like I feel like I didn't, or if I did, I didn't remember it of like growing up with her as like an actual like I know like the snake on the shoulder. Like I know all of that stuff now, but
Oh
I don't think I
yeah.
was like watching that because I think that was like 2001. I because I
Oh
wrote
yeah.
something about 9/11 and I wrote something about how she had just done that MTV show with like the big python, boa, whatever
Oh
it is,
wow.
whatever snake it was. So I don't remember her as like a personality. I think I remember like the leave Britney alone thing, but I didn't really
Yeah, because I
connect with
remember
it that
that
much
as a kid.
because
There was that YouTube video of that
yeah,
person crying, just leave Britney alone.
I just feel
But
like I knew more about like Jamie Lynn Spears, and
mm,
that's where I was coming from.
that was also a thing. Because I think a lot of the, because I loved her music when I was like a little, like a really little kid. But growing up, my parents kind of used both Britney Spears and Jamie Lynn Spears of a like, that's what happens when like you go down a bad road and you make bad decisions. Like, don't do alcohol and drugs because
Or
you'll end up like
Cosmic
Britney
Brownies.
Spears. Yeah. And they're like, don't have, sex when you're a baby, when you're like 15, 16, because then
Oh,
you'll end up pregnant like Jamie Lynn Spears having a baby at 16. So,
Zoe 101.
yeah. But also, of course, when I was that young, I was like, oh, they look so old on that show. And then now, as like a person in their 20s, I look at 16-year-olds and I'm like, you're an actual baby, an actual child. Um, but they were definitely like framed to me as like cautionary tales as a kid.
Yeah.
But now I kind of look back and I'm like, oh, just like a lot of brutality from the press on this
Yeah.
female figure that I, looked up to as a kid.
Yeah.
So a little bit of trauma, a little bit of nostalgia, which
Hmm.
is most things in life, I think. And then my last thing on the list is middle school dances. Did you go to a dance in middle school and elementary school?
Um,
Because I think in
Not.
elementary school, they were all during school hours. And then in middle school, we had like two after school dances.
I think like elementary school, we had one after school, but I was like getting out of like a dance dress rehearsal. I missed most things because of like dance dress rehearsals.
Mm.
And so I came for like the last 10 minutes and they wouldn't really let me do anything.
Oh
That was really
no.
sad. Yeah, and we like made sure I was like had my full like face of makeup off and like my hair,
Oh.
like the bun finally came out and stuff, and I was still in tights, but I had like put a dress over it. and they like wouldn't let me do anything. Like they closed all of the like cotton candy and like snow cone
That's
things.
so
So
sad.
yeah. And then I think middle school. I don't remember anything in seventh grade, but I remember eighth grade. I think there was like something. I still have
Hmm.
pictures from it, and we
Oh
did like
wow.
the Charlie's Angel pose thing.
Oh,
You remember that?
classic. Classic.
Um, but yeah, I don't remember it being like an actual like dance thing. It was kind of like there were a bunch of stations you could go to.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Cuz I feel like in the movies there's always like the girls are standing around on one side, the boys are standing around on the other side, and then they like one will like get up the courage and they'll do like a weird awkward like swaying dance, which there definitely were kids who did that, but there wasn't like dancing wasn't a huge thing. I think the 8th grade like end of the year dance, one guy like there were a few kids that were just like they'd people would form circles and then one person would dance in the middle.
That was always my
And
biggest fear.
right, and a few people who did that like would do break dancing,
Mm.
and I was like, yo, you're either trained in breakdancing or you're just like flailing your body around. Either way, I was like, that looks I'm scared, I'm not gonna watch. But I remember my 6th grade dance, like it was like the end of elementary school kind of thing too, and they actually had a DJ, and I think they basically just played that one like Black Eyed Peas bar mitzvah song. Oh my god, what's it called? I Got a Feeling. Is that what it's called? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and then they just jumped up and down, and that was like the dancing.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, there was no like. I feel like some of like the couples that already existed would like go to the dance together, but it was really like very casual dress, and like there wasn't that expectation that you have to like dance with a boy or something.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the movies there was like a lot of a trauma on screen of like, oh my god, you have to like tell your crush you like them and like dance with a boy. And then in real life, I was just like, none of my friends want to do that. Nobody did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't play slow songs for 12-year-olds. We were fine.
Exactly. I don't know. I have always wondered like what the life of the DJ is that works like these middle school
Ooh,
dances.
a middle school DJ. Where does your life have to be for you to that be your job? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Fun fact, my high school Spanish teacher, he was a DJ in his non-teaching hours, and I think he did weddings.
Oh wow.
But cuz one time he told us, he was like, "Oh, I have a big wedding coming up." And we were like, "We don't care." But I wonder if he was the kind of guy to like also do middle school dances as a DJ, or if he was strictly a wedding DJ. Either way, not my thing. I'm not a fan of DJs at those kind of events. Also, um, I would never have a DJ at my wedding. I feel like that would be extremely embarrassing. Because I feel like if you just like pick out some songs and the DJ just like make sure everything plays and no songs skip and stuff, like that's fine. But like if they're also like a hype man and an MC and like doing the record scratching or whatever, I'm like, that's no
Yeah.
thank you, I can't. No.
What if you were like
But
in the middle of your first dance and it's really slow and they're like
and they just like break it down. No thank you, I would die. I would fire them on the spot. Oh my god. But
um,
yeah, I don't know, I feel like middle school and elementary school in general were just like a little bit traumatic in terms of just being an embarrassing pre-pubescent teen.
mhm.
But I feel like the dances for the most part were very like, I feel like the adults tried to make it as non-awkward as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And they would
agree.
give us like activities. Honestly, my 6th grade dance, they had like a chocolate fountain machine,
Oh wow.
and everybody just like ate that until they ran out, and then everybody was like, I guess I'll go home now. And that was like the extent of it.
I love that.
But yeah,
Um,
I guess we're rounding it out with like another
yeah.
a childhood snack of a chocolate fountain.
Would
I
you
don't
like to do a
anything
Mad
chocolate.
Lib?
Let's do a Mad Lib. Oh my
Okay.
god.
So this is from the Mad Libs in Love. I
Ooh,
was saving this one
romantic.
for marriage, but
Oh,
why not break it out today? Could you give me a
Yeah.
plural noun?
Yeah, fuck your future husband. A plural noun?
Yeah.
Laptops.
And then I will do tablecloths. Please send us words if you're listening.
If you're listening, just shout. We won't hear you, but it's the intention that matters.
Can you give me a noun?
A noun. I don't know, a dumpster.
I'm gonna do another noun. I'm gonna say lipstick. And then this one comes from one of our listeners, Maggie, who gives us an adjective, sweaty. Last time,
Nice.
Brooke gave us sweats, so officially summer.
Just a couple of sweaty gals.
Could you give me another noun?
A noun? Gumball.
And part of the body, I'm going to say left, big toenail. Could you give me another noun?
Water tower?
Ooh. Have you been watching
I'm just looking at a water tower right now.
Oh, I thought you were watching like that documentary.
What documentary?
About the hotel?
Oh, the girl? Oh, that's sad. I did watch that though. It was really sad.
Yeah. Another part of the body, I'm going to say elbow. Could you give me a verb?
Verb? Podcasting.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And then I'm going to do a noun. Say purse. Could you give me another plural noun?
Children.
And then I'll do a noun. Snowman. And could you give me a person in room female?
Ashley Tisdale.
Gotcha.
She's right behind you.
Wow. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
This is called a fan letter.
Oh my god.
Dear Leonardo.
Oh my god.
What age is this for? What? Who's sending a letter for Leonardo DiCaprio?
A 50-year-old man.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he was in the headlines on Twitter the other day because New York Post was like, Leonardo DiCaprio is unrecognizable in new role, and then they showed like a still from set, and he looked exactly like Leonardo DiCaprio, and everyone was like, what the fuck? Terrible reporting. We all recognize him as Leo DiCaprio. Calm down.
Well, now we're writing him.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A group of my laptops and I were sitting around talking about movie tablecloths, and your name came up. My friend Jenny, who really drives me up a dumpster, dared me to ask you for an autographed lipstick. I suppose you get zillions of sweaty requests like this, but if I don't hear from you, I'll be laughing gumball up the school, and Jenny will thumb her left big toenail at me. If you do write, and hopefully you will, please write something personal on your water tower. I promise you, cross my elbow and hope to podcast. I'll hang it in my bedroom. That way your purse will be the last thing I see before I go to sleep, and the first thing I see when I open my children in the morning. Your ever faithful snowman, Ashley Tisdale.
Aw, who knew she was such a big fan?
Right?
Wow. Damn.
When do you open your children in the morning?
I open them right up. I chop them, open their entrails, and then I put them back at the end of the day.
Okay, good.
Just like every good mom.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed those discussions and games and unleashing of memories.
If you would like to follow our podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at Zillennial Support Group and on Twitter at ZSG Podcast. Send us a message. Please send us a word so we don't have to do the Mad Libs just on our own. And you can just Google us, Zillennial Support Group Podcast. to listen on more channels. And I think our email is zillennialpodcast@gmail.com. So you can send words
Yeah,
that way.
probably. Yeah, can send thoughts, suggestions, ideas.
What
But
was your
yeah, I
favorite
hope
food
my favorite food in life or in childhood.
in childhood?
Oh, probably goldfish
Mm.
or those little bites that were like tiny brownies.
Oh,
Do you remember those?
also
Those
made
are
with
really
pot.
good. Yeah. Well, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Ooh,
Hope you have a great day, and I hope you eat tons of delicious food, whatever they may be. All right.
yay.
Bye.